IdahoSports.com's 20th anniversary season and presentation of the 2017 IdahoSports.com Football Preview Show is brought to you in part by the Idaho Army National Guard. Defend what matters most. By Cable One, the face of fast. By your local Toyota dealer. Toyota, let's go places. And by Project Filter, Idaho fights tobacco.
Welcome to IdahoSports.com, 5A State Football Preview Show. Will Hoenike here, Matt Harris, Paul Kingsbury down on the end. We're at Mountain View High School, where it's getting to be time to go. We came out here to record today, guys, and get these things going, and they were lining the field. They were hanging up some banners. It is it's that football time.
It's go time. It absolutely is. You can see, I had a chance to talk with the Booster Club president for a while. She was saying a lot of the things. They're putting up a new scoreboard here at Mountain View High School. It'll be up by the 24th, so might miss the first game, but it's going to be pretty sweet. I saw a picture of it. It's going to be nice.
They're painting the lines, too, today as well, and that just kind of gets you thinking, oh, yeah, football. You're excited for it. It's nice to have the fresh-cut grass and be out here on a beautiful afternoon.
Yep. 5A defending state champions, Mountain View High School. No coincidence. We're at Mountain View High School. Take a look at the championship bracket from last year, the 5A state championship bracket. Mountain View winning the state championship. Keenan Patwell setting the state record with 6 touchdowns in the state championship game. He's gone on to the College of Idaho, where he will continue to play football, and we're hearing that he should be playing quite a bit as a true freshman for the Coyotes out in Caldwell going forward from this point. State tournament brackets brought to you by Cable One High-Speed Internet, the face of fast. So with the District 3 being the reigning champ, if you will, it's also where the bulk of the 5A schools are in the state of Idaho, so much so that they have 2 pods. They will send 4 teams to the state tournament, or I beg your pardon, 6 teams to the state tournament out of those 2 pods. An at-large team, there could be 7 teams from District 3 potentially in that state tournament come November. So let's start there. Eagle, Capital, Rocky Mountain, Mountain View. Those 4 teams the last few years, they've kind of been the kings on top of the jungle gym, so to speak. Entirely possible we could see it again.
Absolutely. I mean, they were the 4 teams that made it to the state semifinals last year. I mean, no other teams from the north or from the east were able to make it into the state semifinals. And a lot of players have moved on. I mean, you look at Mountain View, for example, Tucker Rovig, Keenan Patwell, among others that are no longer there. Eagle lost 20 of 22 starters. And I know that I watched the KTVB interview with Paul Peterson, and he didn't sound very confident. He's just saying, we've got a lot of kids coming in. But I think, kind of like you said at one point last year, Paul, it's not like these kids, they've never played before. I mean, right. they're in the program. They know exactly what's expected of them. Capital and Rocky Mountain, 2 teams that really want to watch out for.
You know, and that's one nice thing about having coaches that have been in the program for a while. They have a chance to develop, everything from the optimist to the PAL to all of those, all the way up into the middle schools and up in. If all those coaches down below buy into that system, by the time they get up to varsity, it's ingrained. They know what they're doing. So when you get those, the Patwells and the Rovigs leaving, you've got the replacements coming right behind them. And in the 5E SIC, you're going to see a lot of that this year. The good teams are going to stay good.
Head coach Judd Benedict getting some good playing time for younger players last year in some of those games where they would ultimately get a bigger lead. So, Matt, to your point, it's not like none of these kids have ever seen the field. And you mentioned Eagle loses 20 starters off of a very good football team last year, state semifinalists. If you're only going to have two people coming back, it always helps when one of them is your quarterback, Devin Bridgewater.
Yeah, and with Bridgewater back, he knows the system, he knows exactly what's expected of him, and he can help direct his receivers and his running backs, and he can be the true leader of that offensive unit, and that's something that certainly for the Eagle Mustangs, having that, your main guy being your quarterback coming back, that's huge for them. It gives them a little bit more of an edge heading into the first game of the season, first and second weeks, so that they know that their signal caller, he's an all-conference player returning all SIC. He's going to lead them. He knows what he's doing, and he can help direct traffic, especially as those new starters kind of work out the jitters.
Right, and this conference is the conference itself is so big, it's split into 2 pods. And what that means is you don't get a lot of rest weeks. You're going right into games that matter. So you need to be prepared from day one. So you're doing the 2-a-days right now. You're going through Hell Week right now to get ready for game 1, game 2, game 3, because you can't wait. Up north, some of those teams, they can wait until the last 2 games of the season when they, quote, matter. Mm-hmm. Not in the 5A SIC.
we could talk about this all day long, obviously, but scheduling an issue in the 5A because in District 3, not hard to schedule because there are so many teams playing 5A football here. If you're in District 1, if you're in District 6, options are a little more limited. We won't delve into that a lot more, but it does make schedule making a little more difficult. Rocky Mountain, Scott Kreiner moves on very late in the game to take over as the athletic director at Eagle. Coach Kulig coming in, was on staff last year, gets the transfer from Boise High, Will McMullen at quarterback, Carter Keel, the running back, offensive player of the year in the SIC last year, and Keegan Freeborn, who holds several Division I football offers along the offensive line. Rocky Mountain looks like a team that could put up some points this year.
And Freeborn, from what I understand, committed to Boise State, if I believe that's correct. And Kuehl is committed to Air Force as well. So, I mean, very good Mountain West Conference programs there. And so for Coach Kulig coming in, it's not like the cupboard's bare by any means. I mean, he's got a lot of talent to work with. And I know when he was named the head coach and Scott Kreiner left to go to Eagle, they were saying we're going to be fine. And Coach Kreiner said they're going to be fine. They have everything in place to be fine. You bring back a lot of returning talent and a lot of players who have done an excellent job over the past season or so. And I mean, they're going to be loaded once again. They're certainly a team that could make a run for it.
Well, it's not like he's coming in from out of state or coming in from another. He's been in that program for a long time. So he's going to basically just taking a step. He's changing out whistles, getting a better clipboard, and taken over where he's already been.
Then you bring in Will McMullen, who quarterbacked at Boise last year. He comes in at quarterback now, and I mean, he was named as an all-conference player at Boise. Now he has even more players to work with, more skill positions, and more that have received those all-conference awards. Let's see what he can do now. He threw a few picks last year. Let's see if he can cut down on that and see if he can get a hold of the Rocky offense.
Yeah, Jerry O'Mahony, the new head coach at Boise High. Looking at his quarterback position, thinking he's got Will McMullen, a good player, coming back. Now he doesn't have him, so Coach O'Mahony going to have to find a new trigger man for the Boise Braves this year. Capital High, Todd Simmis. This seems to be that team that every year is Final Four worthy. Can't quite get over the hump. Is this the year that maybe they're able to do it?
Potentially. I mean, they lose Drew Korf, and Korf was he's an awesome quarterback for Capital. Really put that team on his back and carried him in some respects. They have Drew McGuinn, one of their offensive linemen, all SIC. He's back, kind of help anchor that offensive line. But they have that tradition in their program, and they know what's expected of them, much like the other teams that we've talked about already to this point. And I think that they're a team that they'll certainly have an opportunity to make a run. They're just going to have to find some new faces to help lead them there this year.
Right, and I think tradition is really the word that best describes Capital. They've been there a long time. They're an established school. They've got kids coming up that want to wear that black helmet. They want to be Gurkha. That's what they go for. And so bringing those kids up, and every year they like you said, they always seem to get there. Last year with Korf and everybody else there, could have been their year. The problem was Mountain View was this much better. So it's rough when you've got that team, and then you're also playing someone else that's got that team.
Is there a team in District 3? We said these four are kind of the teams that did it last year, but CUNA went to the playoffs last year. Meridian went to the playoffs last year. Is there a team that we're not talking about yet that maybe could jump up into that top four? Or have they created a little bit of separation from the rest of the SIC?
How about Bora? I mean, Bora was 5-5 last year. They lost in the first round to Coeur d'Alene, but they were under Jason Burton. I believe it was his first season at Bora, and he did an excellent job in his first season in leading that program. If I remember correctly, they didn't start out too hot, but they really got better as the season progressed. Right. They went 3-2 in their pod, finished third. They got walloped by Coeur d'Alene in the first round, 54-13. But they're a team that they can take that next step. I think it's one of those cases where you're setting up your program, you're trying to get that tradition going, trying to elevate that tradition some, and I think Jason Burton is going to do a good job. Look out for them this year.
Oh, absolutely. That last year they were a team that either lost by a lot or won by a lot, and they've got a really young offense coming in this year. I think it's going to kick them up over that edge.
4 new coaches in the SIC this year. We mentioned Coach Kulig at Rocky Mountain, also Coach O'Mahony at Boise, but we should also mention a couple of former Boise State football players. Ian Smart, the new head coach at Timberline, Sherm Blaser, the new head coach at CUNA going in. So now it's time to put our prognosticating caps on, guys. Who are the teams? They do the 2 different pods, so I'm not going to say who wins the conference championship. Who are a couple of the last teams that you expect to see standing out of the SIC?
Well, I'm going to start with Rocky Mountain. Rocky Mountain is talented. They're deep. They're loaded. They're well coached. I think that they're a team that's certainly can win their pod this year. I'm also, it's a toss-up really for me between Capital and Mountain View. I'm going to go with Mountain View, though. They did lose a lot, but they do bring back a couple of players, and including one of their offensive linemen, All-SIC Gatlin Condi. I think that, again, new faces, but still very, very talented, very, very deep. I mean, we could see a lot of the same, in terms of pod championships this year.
Right, and I'm going to go with you on Rocky Mountain as well. There's so much talent there. I just don't see how, even if they get an injury or two, that's how deep they are. So
they have someone to step up in that case, and some teams don't.
Right, and Rocky Mountain does. I mean, their program's huge. I mean, I think they are the biggest school
in the state.
It's a big talent pool to draw from. I wish I had that big of a talent pool here at Idaho Sports.
You have a very small one. You are the Camas County of broadcast teams.
But we're dedicated.
Darn
Paul.
right.
We're dedicated.
We are dug in. We are definitely dug in.
Now, my second place team is the one we just talked about. And I hope I don't offend some Mountain View people because we're here on their turf, but almost literally. But
they might turn the sprinklers on us here.
I wouldn't turn that down right now. It's like 200 degrees.
They're on over there. So
Bora, like we mentioned, they've got a very veteran-oriented defense, which you have to have, and a very young, talented offense. I think that mix, like I mentioned before, is going to push them up the ladder in the 5A SIC.
I like both Rocky Mountain and Eagle, and I know they're both in the same pod, so they can't both win the pod. But when it comes to teams that I expect to be playing well into November, I would go with those two. But obviously, plenty of candidates out of the 5A SIC. We're going to take a break here on the IdahoSports.com 5A preview show. North Idaho, you're coming up next. Eastern Idaho, you're coming up next as well. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on IdahoSports.com.
In the Army National Guard, you'll serve part-time to be ready to respond at all times. You'll train to master the skills and equipment used to keep the nation secure and its enemies on the run. You'll learn to be a leader and a member of a team. Become part of a time-honored tradition of vigilance and selfless service. Find your adventure at NationalGuard.com.
The future is now, with the next generation of internet speed. GigaOne from Cable One. With up to 1,000 megabits per second, now there's almost no limit to what you can do and how fast you can do it. So create now. Connect now with unsurpassed speed that lets you be you. Why wait for tomorrow? GigaOne from Cable One. The future is now.
What you waiting for?
.com 5A high school preview show. Will Hoenike, Matt Harris, Paul Kingsbury here at Mountain View High School. Very gracious of them to let us come out here.
Yeah.
It's early August now, so teams are just getting warmed up. But when you go over to District 5-6, Matt, that's kind of your wheelhouse. There aren't too many people in the state of Idaho that knows those two teams better. The conversation on an annual basis, whether it's August, whether it's October, whether it's November, it's invariably going to start with the Highland Rams.
Well, what were you doing in 1994? Let me start this conversation by that.
I would date myself if I told you.
Yeah,
he can't remember.
He can't remember what happened.
Listening to Charles and Eddie.
1994 was the last time that Highland missed the playoffs. Isn't that remarkable? 23 straight years. Talk about a tradition of a team right there with the Highland Rams, with how well that they've played consistently as a team in this conference. They've made the playoffs. They've made several state championship runs, and they bring back a lot of players this year. Last year they went 6-4, which is kind of low by Highland standards by all means. They bring back defensive lineman Tommy Togiai. He's been given offers from pretty much almost every Division I Power 5 school out there. Ohio State, Washington, USC, Utah. Those schools have all offered him. You bring back linebacker Coleman Farnsworth. He's a hard-hitting player as well. They are loaded once again. Their entire offensive line is back. Completely different story from last year, where they were all 5 brand new offensive linemen.
And it showed early in the year.
It showed, and it showed at the end of the year too. They got smacked by Mountain View by 27 in the state quarterfinals. It was close until halftime, and then you could just tell that they just wore down. But Highland, like I was saying, they're loaded on offense as well. They're loaded on defense. They look to be very, very competitive this year.
Yeah, I agree. Highland is one of those teams that, like we mentioned, even when they're down, they're still pretty darn good.
Yeah.
And they're always a threat, no matter what. That game where Mountain View beat them, 30-3 in the semis, I was surprised. I think at the end, we all knew Mountain View would win, but I thought it'd be close. And to see that blowout, I think you're right. They got worn out there at the end. They're also, if looking down past Highland, it's kind of a crapshoot. Rigby, Hillcrest. Who else can be good there? And I think it's who's going to be working the hardest. Avoids the injuries, as the coaches like to say. We got to stay healthy. Well, I think that's true in this case when you're playing for second in that conference.
Well, you got Madison. They lost a lot of starters. I believe it was 20 of 22 as well. Mitch Buck, he's been there for a long time. They've set up the program. They always seem to succeed. Madison always has athletes. So even though they're losing a lot, I don't feel like that's going to be as huge of a deal as it would be at maybe some other schools because they do have all those athletes. They bring back running back Blake Mosley this year, and he has some wheels on him. He is a very shifty, he is a fast running back. He's a lot of fun to watch as well. And then you kind of mentioned some of the other teams. Bonneville's got Matt Virgil now in his second season, did a good job in his first season turning around that program. Hillcrest is going to have a lot of experience on their team this year. They have some nice young guns as well. Rigby's got a new coach, Armando Gonzalez, who was a former coach down in California, is also coached at a couple of colleges down there as well. They have a lot of talent back as well.
Yeah, they do.
A ton.
He has a lot to work with.
He's got it's certain. So, Randy Waite left him a great program when he took that over. So I
hope he said thank you.
If you look at that conference, really, a lot of spots are up for grabs there. A lot of stuff can happen.
3 teams and possibly an at-large out of that district going forward. So we'll put our prognosticator caps back on with our picks. Paul's picks first. I think I'll state the obvious. I think all 3 of us expect Highland to win the conference championship.
Yeah.
Who is a team that you see giving them the toughest tussle?
I'm going to go back to Rigby. They've got a lot of returning all-conference players. They have a lot of talent coming back, a good coach coming in to take over the program. I'm going to go with Rigby.
I'm going to go with Madison. And I think Madison's going to give them the toughest time. And Coach Mariani said it the best. He said, there may be a lot of respect between our 2 programs. There's not a whole lot of love, though, and not a whole lot of like. Yeah. Anytime those 2 teams get together, it's an instant classic. It's always a good game. And Madison and Highland, they take their level and they go up even higher when it comes to that football game. I think that will probably be the most exciting conference game that Highland has this year. But don't be surprised if Hillcrest gives them a run either.
Now the 3 boys in the same color shirts here with a moderate disagreement, shall we say, though you kind of stole my thunder. Head coach Jeff Marshall, I see Hillcrest being that team that's kind of standing there at the end of the year. And I think that once you get past Highland, I think that the margin for error between all the other teams is pretty close. So I don't think that there's a surefire 2, just like I don't think there's a surefire 5.
Well, in Bonneville, for example, last year they didn't have the same starting offensive line for any of their games. It was always someone different because of injuries. If they can if they can stay injury free this year, maybe that accelerates their progression just a little bit more. Maybe they sneak in to one of those spots as well. It all depends on those injuries, kind of like was mentioned already.
The Inland Empire League up north has kind of been Coeur d'Alene's playground the last few years. Lewiston actually won it last year. The Bengals lose not only do they lose their head coach, Sean Nilsson, 20 of 22 starters. They have a couple of players back and some younger players who saw good playing time last year, but it's going to be a learning curve under new head coach Matt Pancheri. Doesn't seem to be the case with Coeur d'Alene. Sean Amos, the head coach, with Colson Yankoff and a number of quality all-conference players back. Again, they look clearly like the team to beat as it stands right now for that division.
Agreed. Yeah, Colson Yankoff, he's committed to Washington. He's a high-quality quarterback. He can run. He can throw. He's very, very good. Now, he is coming off of a knee injury that he suffered during track season. From what Greg Lee of the Spokesman Review, one of our friends, said, he said he wouldn't be surprised to see him in uniform at the start of the season either. And so they initially anticipated he wouldn't be back to midway through the season. So if he comes back earlier, that's better, but worse for the conference for the IEL, simply because all of their conference games or league games are at the end of the year.
Right. And all the best of luck to him. You never want to see injuries anywhere, and track injuries are always the ones that take the longest to heal, the stress fractures and things that happen in track and whatnot. But Coeur d'Alene, they had a great run a few years ago. Then they kind of dipped off. Lewiston, like you mentioned, picked up their game, took over. Honestly, at this point, I don't see how Coeur d'Alene, with or without Yankoff, doesn't actually just steamroll all the way through the conference.
So we have them unanimously again at number 1 as we go to the prognostication. Can Lewiston get in there for that second spot? 2 teams out of District 1-2 going to the state tournament. Lake City, Post Falls, how do you guys see that shaking out?
Well, for Matt Pancheri now as the head coach at Lewiston, you got a new system. You've lost almost all your starters. You're starting from scratch. So I think there's going to be a steep kind of a learning curve there until they catch up. How fast they take that learning curve, it depends on a lot of different factors. I think Post Falls, though, could be a team that could end up in that second position out of the IEL. They had a great year last year. They had a 6-3 record, only went 1-2 in league play. They fell to Lewiston and to Coeur d'Alene. And just based on the tiebreaker of the State 5A wild card spot, the at-large, I guess is what they call it, they fell to CUNA in that wild card scenario there. But they were 6-3. I mean, that's not exactly a horrible league going on in the IEL. Yeah. That's a quality league. I'd look for them to take the next step and return to the playoffs.
You know, I'm not going to be quite as eloquent about it. I'm looking at Lake City. I think that this is their time. I think that they're not quite with Coeur d'Alene, and that's a rivalry to rival rivalries. Yeah. You know, the fight for the fish game every year up there is just tremendous. But so I don't see them coming out on top over Coeur d'Alene, but I do see them one step below.
I'm there with you. Bryce Erickson, Lake City. That's the team I see coming out, but to be determined.
Yep.
Exactly how it plays
2 out of 3.
out.
We actually win.
And both Bryce.
It's a democracy.
Yeah. and both Bryce Erickson at Lake City and Blaine Bennett at Post Falls. Now their second official seasons as head coach. Of course, Blaine Bennett took over in the interim a couple of seasons ago. So normally you see a lot more progress in the second season overall. Yeah. So I look to see a lot of improvement from both Lake City and Post Falls.
Time for our turnaround team now, brought to you by Toyota, the Toyota Going Places turnaround team. Thanks to our local Toyota dealers for making that happen. We've mentioned a lot of teams, but I'm going to ask you, what's a team? We've named a couple biggies. We're unanimous on Highland. We're unanimous on Coeur d'Alene. Where's the third team come in here? Who's the third team that you guys see coming in that could upset the apple cart, so to speak?
I'll take this one. I'll take it. I'm going to stay right here in the Boise Valley. I'm not a homer, I promise, but I'm just looking at Centennial Patriots. Centennial, they've got a bunch of guys with varsity experience coming back. Very young last year, and it showed. It's just what happens when you've got young guys. But that means they have a lot of guys with, quote, real-world experience coming in to this next year. They're not overly deep. That could be a factor, but they're definitely going to come away with a winning record this year, which didn't happen last year. So they're not, they're not going to be competing against Coeur d'Alene and Highland at the end, but they've turned the corner, and they're going to continue to progress and get better over the next couple of years.
I want to look at Bonneville for just a second. Kind of like I mentioned earlier, Bonneville, they are a team that they've had some down years prior to Matt Virgil getting there. They've got a lot of their offensive line back. They're trying to, if they can keep them all healthy, keep quarterback Brock Saxton on his feet, they can make some plays. They've got some tremendous young talent at Bonneville High School. I think they're a team that could take that next step and certainly push for the playoffs, a place that they haven't been in quite some time.
I guess I'll go with the kind of more of a hypothesis, a theory, if you will, versus a team. I see a second team coming out of District 1, out of the IEL, whether it's Post Falls, whether it's Lake City. I see one of those teams making a little bit of a push. And Paul, I'm with you where, is it going to be enough to get them into a state championship game? Only time will tell. I do think that a second team comes out of there and makes a little bit of noise coming up this year. We're going to take a time out here on IdahoSports.com. When we come back, we'll talk to the head man of the IHSAA. Ty Jones joins us next when you return on IdahoSports.com.
Save on the remaining 2017s during Toyota's National Clearance Event. Plus, every new Toyota comes with Toyota Care at no additional cost.
At Toyota's National Clearance Event, you could get 0% APR financing on a 2017 RAV4. Offer ends September 5th. Toyota, let's go places.
My name's Jerry, and I smoked for 30-plus years. I was elk hunting. My left arm and my left leg started tingling on me. I nearly died, and it was enough to wake me up. Being on the top side of the grass is a good alternative to smoking. I still hunt, and now it's getting time where the grandkids are going to start going, and I want to be there for that. Call 1-800-QUIT-NOW or visit projectfilter.org.
Welcome back to Mountain View High School. Will Hoenike, it's the 5A preview show here on IdahoSports.com. Will, Matt, and Paul here on IdahoSports.com. Paul, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for some great sponsors. Why don't you tell us about a couple new ones coming on board?
Like you said, we can't do what we do without all of our business partners across the state, from mom and pops in small towns all the way up to great companies like Toyota. They are now one of our newest major sponsors, came on big, statewide, everything we do. You're going to be seeing a lot of Toyota Let's Go places all over IdahoSports.com this year. Also another one, the Idaho Army National Guard. Great people over there. went and had a chat with them. They love what we do. They want to be part of it. We talked, we worked it out. So now they are another one of our major sponsors here at IdahoSports.com. And third, not a major, but also a big partner with us. They have been for a while. They've stepped up a little bit more and are sponsoring a new feature here at IdahoSports.com, the Play of the Week. So we're doing 10, 12, 15 games a week, broadcasting every week, and we'll take one of the best plays from those games on Monday morning, put it on YouTube, social media, and we'll tell you about how you can follow us on those a little bit later. But Play of the Week presented by Project Filter. Watch for that every Monday on Idaho Sports.
Yeah, Corby and Colin over there, good friends of the program. Yep. We appreciate having them on board. Matt, earlier this week you had a chance to talk to Ty Jones, Executive Director of the IHSAA. Give him a little bit of a State of the Union address moment.
Yeah, I had a great opportunity to chat with him. It was a great conversation. Talked about a lot of different things that the IHSA is doing, things that are going on behind the scenes that maybe not a lot of people know about. And so right now we're just going to play for you a little clip of that interview and conversation that we had.
One of the hot button issues, one of the big topics, as you know, Ty, right now, is concussions in all sports, not just football. What are some of the things that the IHSA is doing to promote safety in high school sports?
That's one of the things that we did a few years ago is we, and we'll talk specifically about fall sports because, for the most part, the vast majority of concussions, at least for us, come from football and then soccer and volleyball and then other sports after that. Wrestling's a big one too. But we revamped our practice times and the amount of hitting that we actually do, so that we could, people weren't out there just every single day doing tackling drills and those types of things. And there's more rest involved now between practices. There's a cap on the number of hours that teams can practice and how many hours they can practice in a day. Football coaches for years have been using the 2-a-day practice model. And so what we did with that is we tweaked it to where you can still have 2-a-days, you just can't have them on consecutive days. We implemented a brand new, with the help of St. Luke's, a brand new concussion video that has Idaho-specific legislation in there. Our legislature came back with some ideas and some thoughts about what information they'd like to get out to schools, and so we added that to our concussion video, made our own, with the help of St. Luke's, and then ended up paying for a lot of the training that we had for our teachers and coaches. We added a sudden cardiac arrest course that was new last year that it's the leading killer of student athletes in the country, and not very many people talk about that. We thought that it was important that our coaches had, we know they're not doctors, but they at least need to know the signs and what to do, and we're in the process now of revamping our emergency medical plans and talking to districts about that. So we've been really busy actually with trying to give our schools and the coaches thoughts and ideas, and really it's on them, and they've done a great job a lot of them have already been doing this for years.
Another thing that seems to be a hot topic in Idaho right now is the classification system. And there is a proposal that was brought forth before the board of directors that they took very seriously regarding a change in the classification system. That ended up only being partially amended to now keeping the current system, but having a competitive equity form for schools that consistently struggle in sports. For those out there who don't know, Ty, could you explain to them kind of exactly what a competitive equity form is and how it might affect where a school falls in the classification system?
Yeah, what our board looked at, there was a two-piece proposal from the last system. One of them was part of it dealt with free and reduced lunch numbers, and the other piece dealt with being able to. They wanted to look at ways that if you wanted to petition down, they wanted to give our board some hard facts and figures, and so they came up with a plan to where unfortunately, these schools, if they petition down, are going to be schools that haven't had as much success over the last couple of years. And so they look at it as being an opportunity for them to maybe go down a classification, to maybe jumpstart their programs a little bit, and then get a little bit of success. And hopefully, success breeds more success. And then when they move back up, because then their numbers will improve, they'll have to move back up. They won't be able to petition down again, because they'll be a little more successful. That'll give them the opportunity to hopefully get some more kids out. Once more kids get out, more excitement in the schools. But it's something that, like I said, you don't wish it on anybody, but those are things that, it's going to give those schools that really struggle in almost all activities an opportunity it gives them another avenue to get down a classification.
I also wanted to ask you about the change in the mercy rule. Now, last year, 5A through 2A got a mercy rule for the first time, and that has been tweaked again. Can you explain to everyone kind of what exactly the change was and how the latest change in the mercy rule is going to benefit high school football in Idaho?
Well, benefit high school football depends on who you talk to, Matt. You know how that goes. I mean, it's one of those philosophical things. The mercy rule is, personally, I think it's a good rule. It allows for schools. You're basically protecting schools from some coaches that don't do a very good job of managing their teams and the clocks as far as when they're up a whole bunch of points. So what's changed for the 3A and the 5A is that the mercy rule will start at the beginning of the fourth quarter. The 2A and the 4A games, it starts at the beginning of the third quarter. And essentially, that gives us 3 mercy rules because the 1A mercy rule is a little bit different, but it starts right after halftime as well. But each classification felt that, by doing that, and 40 points is the rule, that's the threshold, that's what they'd like to see in their school. And, if the classifications want to do that, ideally it'd be 1 mercy rule, but when you're dealing, you can't have the same one. 8-man and 11-man football teams have different logistics sometimes that just don't allow them to play by the exact same rules.
So that full interview with Ty Jones, the Executive Director of the Idaho High School Activities Association, it's about 15 minutes long. It'll be available for you to view on our homepage in my blog section, and you can go check it out there if you want to watch the full interview and see the other things that we discussed as well.
When we come back here on IdahoSports.com, the 5A State Preview Show, we're going to put our necks out on the line, tell you who we think is going to win the state championship. We're also going to tell you about some big matchups that you'll be able to watch live and free right here on IdahoSports.com. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Save on the remaining 2017s during Toyota's National Clearance Event. Plus, every new Toyota comes with Toyota Care at no additional cost.
At Toyota's National Clearance Event, you could get 0% APR financing on a 2017 RAV4. Offer ends September 5th. Toyota, let's go places.
In the Army National Guard, you'll serve part-time to be ready to respond at all times. You'll train to master the skills and equipment used to keep the nation secure and its enemies on the run. You'll learn to be a leader and a member of a team. Become part of a time-honored tradition of vigilance and selfless service. Find your adventure at NationalGuard.com.
Welcome back to IdahoSports.com. Will, Matt, and Sven here talking 5A football.
He's Sven now.
Paul, whatever. Will, Matt, and Paul. Oh, boy. God, just joking. Time to put our necks on the line, and Paul/Sven.
Thank you.
We'll start with you. 5A state championship picks, and they're brought to you by our friends at the Idaho Army National Guard. Defend what matters.
In my mind, I had the pick I wanted, and so I had to check the bracket to make sure it could happen, because sometimes you get the championship game happening in the semis. Not this year. Coeur d'Alene over Highland. I'm not sure where that game's going to be played. I think it's going to be played up north because it's been here in the valley and over in eastern Idaho. Coeur d'Alene over Highland.
That's a good pick.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very good pick.
Well, will I get the credit or will Sven? I'm not clear on that.
Depends on what kind of mood we're in that day.
Yeah. I'm going to go, I like Coeur d'Alene, and I haven't checked the bracket, so I don't know if it's possible, but Rocky Mountain. Coeur d'Alene and Rocky Mountain are I think that one are the two teams there. I think, are they on the same side of the bracket?
They're on the same side.
Okay, well, that's going to be a killer semifinal matchup. I think Coeur d'Alene, I'll just take Coeur d'Alene as my championship pick. I certainly see Highland making it far as well, and potentially into the state championship game as well. I do like Coeur d'Alene.
It's going to be a heck of a semifinal.
Absolutely.
Paul/Sven, I'm going to go with you. I think Coeur d'Alene, Highland, that's my choice, and I'm going to give the edge to whichever dome it's in. If it's in eastern Idaho, I'll give Highland a slight edge. If it's in the Kibbe Dome, I'll give a slight edge to Coeur d'Alene. Either way, it should be a heck of a football game. But before we get to the last week of the season, we got to start with the first week of the season.
Yep.
Still doing plenty of live webcasts, live and free, right here on IdahoSports.com, and we come out of the gates firing with some good early matchups.
We really do. The graphic you're seeing right now, that's our first week. That's a lot of games happening from a lot of teams around the state. The Rocky Mountain Rumble, of course. Matt, you'll be at that. Some games you want to point out, you see the red asterisk there, Gooding at South Fremont. A good budding rivalry. Started a couple of years ago with some controversy at the end. Every year it's gotten better. Lakeland at Skyview. Lakeland coming up from up north, coming down to the valley. Should be a great game. Weiser traveling over to the Magic Valley to play Buell. And then you can also see there the Rocky Mountain Rumble game. So switching over to week 2, we give a little more love to some of the smaller schools, but keeping in mind the others as well. We'll be doing a lot of games at Donna Larson, as we always have, and a few more 4A SIC games this year as well. You're looking at Eagle at Highland. That could be a good early season test for both teams. Yep. Grangeville versus Nampa Christian. That's going to be played in McCall, I believe. Or is Grangeville? No, Grangeville is actually coming here. We'll be going up to McCall for another game later on. Prairie at Genesee, it's going to be a good one. Salmon River Prairie. Highland coming here on the 8th versus Capital. Another good early season test. Highland, they're good, and they're going to be tested from the get-go. So that's just the first couple of weeks on Idaho Sports. So you can see the whole full broadcast schedule on Idaho Sports. Keep an eye on it. We have the first half of the season scheduled, and we'll schedule the second half when we see kind of how teams are going to be.
That's going to be a lot of fun. Like you mentioned, we've got Highland's first 3 games on there, I believe, and that'll really give them a good test of where they're going to be at. But hey, that's some good football as well.
When they get through those first 3 weeks, they're going to be plenty battle tested, and that's a lot of 5A teams. That's how it's going to be. Now, viewership. People ask me all the time, how many people watch these things? How many people actually see these games? And when I tell them, people generally fall off of their stools. They're really surprised the reach and the strength and the power of an IdahoSports.com broadcast.
We actually got up to 11.5 viewers last year. It was record break. No,
11.5.
Record breaking.
1.2 million live viewers, not including the archives. Live viewers / listeners, because we did about 150 audio games last year as well. 300 video games. So 1.2 million.
And that's all sports. That's
that's everything. Baseball, girls basketball, boys basketball, football. And it's statewide. I mean, we go places. I mean, we travel. We put on a lot of miles on my Toyota RAV4. So
that's true. He's not lying about that either. That's true.
He purchased it at his local Toyota dealer.
I did. They were advertising with us at Teton Toyota, and I went and leased a car from him. So, but looking at it with that schedule that you saw up there, or the numbers, you saw the top 10 games that we did with the most viewers / listeners. Now, we went to audio this year after the contract. We got the audio rights. Number 1 game we did this year was the 4A football championship, 19,000 listeners. So people are still coming, people are still watching, they're listening, they're enjoying the product almost as much as we enjoy bringing it to them.
Don't forget our platforms on social media for those of you who are big keyboard warriors, so to speak. Is we got Twitter, we've got Facebook, we've got Instagram, and also the YouTube channel as well. Give us a follow, join the conversation, schedule sports, photos, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Features, we'll have it all on IdahoSports.com social media platforms. That's going to do it for the 5A preview show. Wait, yes. I looked down.
You got more?
No, well, I got
down. All day.
See, we got time. I mean, it's not like we're getting burned or anything.
Well, I looked down and I'm like, wait a minute. We did do that. So there you go.
We covered it. We're good.
Yeah,
all right.
There's your hiccup out of the way. We got them both. We got one at the beginning of the show, one at the end of the show.
Hey, that's okay. That's okay.
Well done by me. So for Paul / Sven, normally most people call him Paul, but we'll give him a little bit of Sven too.
P.S.
Also Matt Harris, Sven Alskog behind the cameras as well. Thanks for watching so much. We'll see you on the field.
This has been a presentation of IdahoSports.com Game Streams. This broadcast is copyrighted to IdahoSports.com. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or other use of this broadcast without the expressed written consent of IdahoSports.com is strictly prohibited.